the line which passes through these 2 points is parallel to this line. Now look at this. Very, very important. Please get your pen, get your writing pad and jot this. Take note. I'm going to give you some things that are very important in case you see them in JAMB, you should be able to solve them. When 2 lines are parallel, their gradients are equal. If I have line 1 and its gradient is M1 and line 2, the gradient is M2. If line 1 is parallel to line 2 for parallel lines, M1 is M2. Their gradients are equal. Now, if the 2 lines are perpendicular, you know what it means to be perpendicular? When they form 90 degrees. Let's say this is line 1 and this is line 2. Can you see this? If the angle between them is 90 degrees, their gradient is given as this. The gradient of 1 is negative reciprocal, that is minus 1 over the other one. We can do it vice versa. It's commutative too. This is minus 1 over M1. Can you see this? Good. Now let's solve the question. We're told to find the value of P if the line passes through this and is parallel to this. Now let's go quickly. Now what are the points? The points minus 1 minus P and minus 2 and 2. Now the line passes through this. Now we need to find the gradient. Now gradient is M, given as this, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. How do we find that this x1? Remember, y1, x2, y2. So let's apply 2 minus p over minus 2 minus 1. So this is 2 plus p over, this is plus, right? Minus 2 plus 1 is minus 1. So if you deal with that, the gradient here is minus 2 plus p. Now that is for the first line. They said the line is parallel to this. So it is parallel to 2y plus 8x minus 17 equals 0. We're going to make this line look like this. I gave you the equation of a straight line in the previous question I solved. I said it is y equals to mx plus c. So make this line look like this. Or simply put, just make y the subject of the formula. If we make y the subject of the formula, we have 2y plus 8x equals to 17. Take this over here. I have 2y is 17 minus 8x. If I divide all through by 2, I'm going to have y is 17 over 2 minus 4x. So if you compare this with this, notice that m here is the gradient of the line. M here is the gradient of the line. And this, if you look at that very well, is the coefficient of x. What is the coefficient of x here? The coefficient of x here is minus 4. So remember that when 2 lines are parallel, what happens to their gradient? For parallel lines, their gradients are the same. So this is the gradient of the first line. Let's call it m1. What is m2? Minus 4. So you equate them. Minus 2 plus p equals to minus 4. So the minus can cancel out, leaving us with 2 plus p equals to 4. So if you do your math, 4 minus 2 is what p is. P equals to 2. And that is option D. Now that is that for geometry and trigonometry. We're here in calculus now. I have just a few questions here to teach you. Now find the derivative. Now when we talk about calculus, we talk about differentiation, integration, and their applications. Okay? Differentiation, integration, and their applications. Very quickly, I'm going to solve that question. Now I'll give you the rule for differentiation. I'm sure you're conversant with that. But let's just remind ourselves for the purpose of helping us solve the question. Now we have this. If y equals to x raised to the power n, the y dx, this is sometimes called gradient, is also called derivative. The y dx is simply nx raised to the power n minus 1. That is, if y is x raised to the power 3, the y dx would be 3x raised to the power 3 minus 1, which is 3x raised to the power 2. I'm sure you know that. Now, they said we should find the derivative of this function. This is a very simple question. At the point where x equals to -1. Now, what is the function? Let's write the function. Y equals to 2x squared, open bracket, 2x minus 1. Now you can either solve this question using what we call the product rule, or you can simply open the bracket and make the work easy for you. Now let's open the bracket for time. Remember, I told you when you're doing JAMB, you have to look for shortcuts. So the shortest cut to solving this question is open the bracket. If you open the bracket, 2 times 2 is 4, x squared times x is x cubed minus 2x squared. Now we can find the derivative. Another way of saying that is differentiate that. So differentiate this from what I taught you here. Look at this. The power comes down to multiply this, giving us 12 x to the power 3 minus 1 is 2. Minus 2 comes to multiply this, 4 x to the power 2 minus 1 is 1. Now, but they told us that we should find it at the point where x equals to minus 1. Simply just substitute minus 1 into that. So we have 12, open bracket, minus 1 squared, minus 4, put the minus 1. Now, minus 1 squared is simply 1. 1 times 12 is 12. Minus times minus is plus. 4 times 1 is 4. So 12 plus 4 is 16, which is option B. Thank you. Next question. What is the rate of change? Another name for differentiation is either, this is an application question. I told you under calculus we have differentiation, integration, and the application of differentiation and integration. So this is application question. What is the rate of change of the volume V of a hemisphere? The word hemisphere is simply half of a sphere. Volume. So this is a combination of both calculus and mensuration. Now with respect to its radius r, when r is 2. Now I'm going to write that here. What have we been given? We've been given the radius, and we are told to find the rate of change of the volume. So the volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. Now a hemisphere is half of a sphere. So that's more like saying hemisphere would be half of this. The volume of a hemisphere would be half of that, 4/3 pi r cubed. 2 here, 1, 2 here, 2. So the volume of a hemisphere is 2/3 pi r cubed. Now, this is the volume. We're told that we should find the rate of change of the volume. So rate of change is simply the V, the R. The rate of change of volume with R. The Y, the X is simply the rate of change of Y with X. So the rate of change of volume with R is the V, the R. So this will give us, from what I taught you about differentiation, the 3 comes over here to multiply, and then it drops one of the parts. So we have 3 times 2/3 pi r squared. 3 will cancel 3, leaving us with 2 pi r squared. Now, the r has been giving us 2, so we substitute. So we have 2 pi 2 squared. And 2 squared is 4. 4 times 2 is 8 pi. 8 pi is the answer, which is option A, 8 pi. Next question, which is the last question I'm going to treat under calculus. Integrate. Integrate. Now this is the integral sign. Just like differentiation, I said, if you remember my the video I did last, you can make reference to that. I said that earlier. We did that some 2 years ago. I said integration is anti-differentiation. What differentiation does to a function, integration reverses that thing back to the function. So if this is what differentiation does to this, if you integrate this, it takes you back to this. I'll quickly explain that. Now, let's solve that question. It says integrate. So this is the integral sign. Integrate 2x plus 1 raised to power 3 with respect to x. Now, this is a function. Okay? Now, we're going to use this just like a normal differentiation. One of the techniques of differentiation is what we call function of function. Now, that's very simple. Let u be 2x plus 1. Now, this u is the function of x. So if u is 2x plus 1, it means our integral will be integrating this. Now before then, let's differentiate u with x, with respect to x. The u dx would be, remember there's no x here, so this goes up. It will be 2. From what I taught you, this is like 1. 1 times 2 is 2. X raised to power 1 minus 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. X raised to power 0 anything raised to the power of 0 is 1. So du dx is 2. So let's make dx the subject of the formula. If you cross multiply, you have 2 dx equals to du. So what is dx? Dx is simply du over 2. So we go back and apply that here. If we do, we'll have integral. Remember that 2x plus 1 has been made u. So this is u raised to the power 3 dx. So instead of dx, I'm going to put du over 2. And one of the techniques of integration, this becomes 1 over 2 integral u cubed du. Now let me explain this. Now if you want to integrate a function, let's say integrate x raised to the power n dx. Okay, this is how you integrate. It becomes x raised to the power n plus 1 over n plus 1 plus c. Take note. This is that. This is integration. Remember, differentiation would be n x raised to the power n minus 1. Where integration would be x raised to the power n plus 1. This c is called the arbitrary constant. If you want to understand better, please refer to the video we did some 2 years ago on the prep station. Now let's go back here. So if we solve this, this would give me, from what I just taught you now, 1 over 2 dot u raised to the power 4 over 4. So this is plus c. Remember there's a plus c here. Good. Now this would be u raised to the power 4 over 8 plus c. But there was no u in the initial question. Remember, we have let u to be 2x plus 1. So we can replace that here. If we do, we're going to have, sorry, I need to use this other part of my board. If we do, we're going to have something that looks like this. U would now be 2x plus 1 raised to the power 4 over 8 plus c. This is the final answer. 2x plus 1 raised to the power 4 over 8 plus c is the correct answer to that question. That's that for calculus. Last of all, under the branches for the syllabus, remember we said we have 5 branches. This is the 5th branch. Sorry, the 5th branch, I beg your pardon. Now let me quickly solve the question here. Now the mean, here under statistics, dealing with the mean, median, mode, your mean deviation, standard deviation, and we also have probability under this, and we have permutation and combination under this. So let's solve the question. The mean of 10 positive numbers. Now mean is simply, another word for mean is average. Now for those of you who would need this, I think some of you would need this. Now look at this. Look at this. Mean is simply average. Average. Median is middle. Look at that. I think this is a clue. Median, middle. Mean is average. Median, middle. Mode is most. Okay? Mode, most. Median, middle. Mean is average. So now this will help you. Now the mean of 10 positive numbers is 16. Now how do you find the average of 2 numbers? Add the numbers, divide by 2. That's simple. So if we're talking about 10 positive numbers, the mean will simply be the sum of all the numbers divided by 10. Now let's say we don't know the sum of the numbers. Let's say the sum of the numbers is x. X over 10 will give us the mean. And what is the mean? 16. So let's find the sum of those numbers. From mathematics, when you cross multiply, x would be 16 times 10, which is 160. So the sum of the 10 numbers is 160. That's what it means. When another number is added, we don't know what that number is. So if you add another number to this number, that's more like saying 160 plus, let's call that y, over, we're trying to find the mean, over the mean. How many numbers now? 11. The numbers have become 11. 160 plus y over 11, they said the mean becomes 18. So we have to find the 11th number. So let the y, let the 11th number be y. So if we do that, remember they said the mean becomes 18. So we can cross multiply. So when we do that, we have 160 plus y equals to 18 plus 11. 18 plus 11 is 198. So 160 plus y equals to 198. You can do that. This is the simplest way to do that. 198. So y becomes 198 minus 160. Now that will give us 38. So the next for that number is simply 38. So the 11th number, which is y, is simply 38. Now find the mean deviation. Now the word deviation is What goes away? When something goes away, something that goes away from the mean deviation of 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now there's a formula for that. Now this is the formula. Mean deviation is simply the deviation. Mean deviation, look at the formula, is summation x minus x bar over n. Now let me explain what they mean. Now x is these numbers that we're given. Each one of these numbers has x, or takes that letter x. Now x bar is simply the mean. Now x bar is the mean, n is the sum of the numbers. How many numbers do you have? Now let's go. First we need to find, to get mean deviation, you need to find the mean. Now mean, I told you, is what? Average. How many numbers do we have here? 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. How do you find the average? You take the sum, divide by the number. 1, 2, 3, 4. Already, this is 10. How we can see that? 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 3 is 6, 6 plus 4 is 10. So we have 10 over how many numbers? 4, which gives us 2.5. So the mean is 2.5. Now this is how to solve the question. Very quickly, and I told you, remember we have 40 questions and just a short time. Think about how many hours you have to write 4 subjects. So you have to be as fast as possible. Now let's go. We can do that. This is the sum of the mean deviation. Now, what is that? What's the first number? 1 minus, what is the deviation? What's the mean? The mean is 2.5. Now, so if we follow the formula, mean deviation is the sum of all the deviations. This is called deviation. The sum of all the deviations. Now, that is deviation from the mean. How far did they go away from the mean? So we pick the first number, which is 1. 1 minus, the mean is 2.5. Plus, we have 2 minus 2.5. Plus 3 minus 2.5. Plus 4 minus 2.5. Now, please take note. This is absolute value. What it means is that all the negatives become positive. That's why we have this absolute value. Okay? So look at this. We can do this. Do this. Over the number. How many numbers we have there? 4. 4 numbers. Are we okay? Now that's quite simple. We can solve that. Let's solve that. Now 1 minus 2.5 is minus 1.5, but it becomes 1.5. Plus, this is minus 0.5. It becomes 0.5. I told you what this absolute value does is that it changes all the negative to positive. Plus, this already is 0.5, plus this is 1.5 over 4. Now, this is 3, this is 1. So that's 3 plus 1 over 4 is 4 over 4, and 4 over 4 is 1. So the answer to the question is 1.0, which is option A. Now, this next question says the mean of 2, 5, x plus 1, x plus 2, 7, and 9 is 6. Find the median. Find the median. If you were told to find x, I probably wouldn't have put the question up here. But because there's a median, we will not talk about median. Now, let's quickly solve that. I hope you got this. You can pause the video at any time and go over your work again. Let's quickly solve that question. Now, this question says the mean of those numbers is 9. What are the numbers? 2, 5, x plus 1, x plus 2, 7, and 9. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers. And their mean is what? Is 6. So let's add 2 plus 5 plus, we can open bracket at this point, there's no negative, so it becomes easy. Plus 7 plus 9 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers. And they said the mean is 6. So let's do that. 2 plus 5 is 7, 8, 10, and this is 16. That's 26 plus how many x? 1, 2x. 2x equals, we can cross multiply at this point. If you like, you can cross multiply. Becomes 6 times 6, which is what? 36. So 2x is 26 moves over. 36 minus 26, so 2x is 10. If 2x is 10, x is simply 5. Now we're going to put the value of x into that, what we have. We have 2, remember this. So this becomes 5 plus 1, which is 6. This is 5 plus 2, which is 7. Now for median, take note. We have to arrange the numbers, if you choose to do it in ascending order or descending order. but I'll advise you just do ascending order. So if this is 2, this is 5, this is 6, this is 7, this is 7, this is 9. So I'm going to arrange the number 2. The next 2 is 5, and then there's a 6, there's a 7, there's a 7, and there's a 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, ideally, if the numbers are odd, the numbers, if they are not even, they are odd, it is the middle number. But when they are even, we have 6 numbers. 6 is even. So we pick the 2 middle numbers. So 6 plus 7, we find the average of this. 6 plus 7 over 2 is 13 over 2, which is 6.5. And 6.5 is the correct answer, and that's option C. This is probability. That happens to be my last question. Now, if a fair coin, you know what a coin is. If a fair coin is tossed twice. Now, what are the possible outcomes on a coin? There are 2 possible outcomes. You have either heads or tails. Now, if a fair coin is tossed twice, what is the probability of obtaining at least 1 head? Now, probability is simply, now this is the elementary formula for probability. Probability is simply required outcome over possible outcome. Required outcome over possible outcome. Take for instance, you are told to find the probability of getting a head. Now, you have only 2 possibilities, either heads or tails. So if you're looking for the probability of getting a head, that's just 1 out of the sum of all the possibilities. So if you are told to find the probability of getting a head, it's simply 1 over 2 because there are only 2 outcomes. So this is find the probability, but the coin is tossed twice. That's what it was told us. So this question requires us to draw what I call a tree diagram. What is called a tree diagram? A what? A tree diagram. Now look at this. It's a very simple question. Now we have a coin. If you toss a coin once, you either get a head or you get a tail. Now this is for the first toss. Now if we toss again, the second time, we get a head or a tail. If you toss, you get a head or a tail. Now that leaves us with how many outcomes? 4 outcomes. So let's see, what is the combination of outcomes you have here? Head, head, here, head, tail, here, tail, head, and then here we have tail, tail. The question says we should find the probability of obtaining at least 1 head. What it means is that it can be 1, it can be 2. I can see 2 heads here, so this is 1. 1 head here, 1 head here. There is no head here. Out of 4 of these outcomes, I can see at least a head in 3. So that is 3 over 4. Simple as that. Required outcome for my formula I gave you over possible outcome. There are 4 possible outcomes here. You have head, 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 3 over 4. And 3 over 4 in decimal is 0.75. So that answer is option C. I hope you have enjoyed the class. Remember, all that I told you is very, very important. Take those tips. Go back to the video. Look at all the tips I gave you to pass in this exam. Remember that you have just a short time to solve 40 questions. So I advise that you keep solving. The more questions you solve, the better your chances of getting good grades. Do not limit yourself. There is no big deal about mathematics. Math happens to be the simplest subject in the world. If you go over all I've taught you, pick your textbook, pick the past questions, and study. I can assure you that you'll get nothing less than an 80. 80% is a possibility. I wish you all the best. Have a wonderful time.